make sure that I mind your time. It is always, these presentations for me, if I become chatty Sammy, they're a little bit longer than I anticipated. My goal is to wrap no later than 8:15 EST tonight. So please stick with me if you can, especially because I have some special things for you guys at the end of this presentation. And if you're watching the replay, this should be no more than 75 minutes. So without further ado, guys, welcome to the Sell More Vintage Clothing webinar. I was so excited to launch these a few months ago because I realized a need in the industry and within my community of social media followers to learn more about how to sell vintage clothing. I'm going to tell you guys my story tonight, but I will just briefly say my name is Sammy Davis. I am your host tonight. I am a reseller of luxury and vintage goods. I also host a secondhand shopping tour here in New York City, and I'm the founder of a buy-sell community called Vintage Boss Babes that you will learn a little bit more about tonight. For the sake of today's presentation, I am showing you guys some slides. It just helps me stay on track. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys really quickly. And then I'm going to go into Canva here and I'm going to press present, and you should be able to see the slides pretty easily. Yeah, that looks good to me. If you guys do not see the slides, let me know in the chat. But again, welcome. I always get so hyped for these presentations to the Sell More Vintage Clothing webinar. This is going to be an information-packed presentation for you guys. Thank you again for attending live. So this webinar, who is this webinar for? It is for vintage sellers such as yourselves or aspiring vintage sellers to sell more and make more money so they have more time to do what they love most: sourcing. If you are tuning in live or watching the replay and you agree with me that you love sourcing, just either give yourselves a pat on the back, because I do as well. That is why we are in this business, because we love the thrill of the hunt. Now, guys, I just want to ask really quickly your permission, or rather just, share with you that I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about my story before I jump into the 3 secrets. So we're going to go over 3 secrets tonight of how to sell more vintage clothing. The reason I want to share my story as a vintage reseller is because it's going to give you more context as to how I landed where I am today and why I'm sharing the information I'm sharing with you. And I think it's going to actually give you like a big picture understanding of all the ways to sell vintage. But most importantly, the easiest, most efficient, most profitable way that I have found in my 10+ years in this industry. So let's go back in time. This image to the left here with my mouse is myself. I think I'm 23 years old. It's a black and white photo, even though it wasn't a black and white photo time, but it looks really old. So this is around 2008, and I am a vintage seller, and I am selling at flea markets, guys. I'm selling at indoor flea markets. This was an indoor flea market and outdoor flea markets. The reason I was selling at flea markets is because I loved vintage, and I wanted to share my joy of vintage and fashion and colors and prints and personality with the world. And I thought to myself, this is the way to do it. I'm going to sell in person. I'm going to, rent these quote unquote booths at these indoor and outdoor markets. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be glamorous. I'm going to make all this money. Well, let me tell you, honey, it was not as glamorous. It was not as easy. It was fun at some moments, but it was not as profitable as my baby self thought it would be. I learned a lot, but I realized how difficult it was to sell vintage at flea markets and in person. So, imagine that you are trying to set up at a flea market. You have to put your stuff in your car. You have to set it up. Then you have to break it down. You're meeting people at the markets. You have to make, casual chat with them in order for them to even stay in your booth, or you have to just basically have the energy to be a salesperson. You don't know, what people want, because you can't really predict the flow at the markets, although there can be somewhat of, an audience at the markets. Honestly, it's always different. You don't know what the weather is going to be like. You have to pay in advance. Sometimes you lose your money, or you show up and for whatever reason, everyone is out of town and not showing up at the market. The ebbs and flows were real, guys. I mean, I just wanted to come home with like wads of cash. But to be quite frank with you, I was coming home every single time at the market thinking, or I'm sorry, after the market thinking, next time will be better. Next time will be better. But it was never better. It was always just a frustrating, physically taxing experience. So this is what happened in my resale journey. I thought to myself, okay, so the markets are really hard. I'm not making as much money as I want to, and it's physically grueling and time consuming and exhausting. I'm going to do at home parties. So what I did is I started hosting these at home parties at my friends' homes, and my friends would invite their friends. And it was kind of cool actually, because I would meet a lot of people. I didn't do too bad profit wise because a lot of these girls were fashion girls. So smart idea. But here's where it got difficult. All right. Not only did I still have to set up and break down just like a flea market and drive my car around New York City, but back to the car situation. Now, not everyone has, this dilemma, but I was constantly getting parking tickets. This is the funniest thing to me. This showed up in my Facebook memories and I had to screenshot it, where I was just like, I had to pay $153 worth of parking tickets back in 2008. Because again, I was having to move my car back and forth around the city just to set up for these parties. And you might have a similar situation where, you don't have time, or you don't have the physical, capability to put stuff in your car, to take it out, to put it in your friend's house. Most of the time your friends are nice, but they're not going to let you like set it up days in advance. So you have to do it the day before or the day of. You're exhausted for the party. And then you have to manage the guest list. You have to manage the food. You have to manage just that whole kind of like personality behind being a salesperson, again, in person. So in comparison to the flea markets, it was a little bit nicer, but it wasn't like a huge step up for me. And I realized really, really quickly, okay, this in-person stuff, I don't know if this is going to be my way to make a sustainable income through vintage fashion. I was getting discouraged. I was getting frustrated. And to be quite frank with you, I was getting broke. I mean, back to that $153 in parking tickets, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Guys, I actually had I don't even have it in the slides, but I had my car window broken 3 times because of keeping clothing in my car in New York City, because I was just too tired to take it back up to my apartment. So enter the internet. I think all of us are familiar with the internet. If that's a bad joke, but back in the day, there were a few options that, seemed really attractive for someone who was trying to sell vintage in person, doing okay, but coming up against these roadblocks. So eBay and Etsy, they were the platforms that after I realized, okay, this in-person selling stuff is really tough. Why don't I go online? These are the platforms that I chose and that were most readily available for me at the time. So I started listing on these platforms. But here's the thing. And if you're watching this live or watching the replay, again, kind of just like give yourself a little hug here if you have understood this frustration, because you're not the only one. The thing about these platforms, guys, is that they take so much in fees. And it's really difficult when some of these platforms actually enable the customer to make offers to you, therefore decreasing the amount of money you're making just to get a garment out the door. And then the platform is taking a cut. Poshmark is a great example of that. eBay also allows offers. I'm sure people on Etsy message people on Etsy and say, hey, can I have this for less? So the fees range from, 6.5%. Etsy actually charges a 3% processing fee plus 25 cents plus 30 cents just to list, which is really annoying because if you want to list 300 things, you're paying like $10 every month just to keep those things up every month because Etsy charges you every month for your listings. So anywhere from 6.5% starting to 20% just to sell your garment. So that really eats into your profits. I have an example because if you are a new seller, you don't really quite understand like how over time these commissions that you have to pay these platforms, it eats into your income. So long story short, this is a great example of something that I sold on eBay. It's a Gunny Sacks vintage dress, very, coveted, collectible. I got it for like $25, something like that. I sold it for $230, which is a great sale. But here's the thing. eBay took $33. And I had to offer free shipping because on these platforms, the customer really does expect free shipping. You're going to have higher placement on these platforms with free shipping. Etsy, pretty much like you have to offer free shipping. So minus $8, which was, you know, the baseline for shipping for this item. So that's $41 in fees. So I ended up with $197.03 in my bank account, minus the $8 that I paid for shipping. So imagine that over time, guys. So that's, sorry, I kind of went ahead here, but $40 you lose with that item. Imagine that happens 10 times a month. You've lost $400 across 10 items. All that work that you're putting into finding the item, listing the item, you know, taking photos of the item, the customer service behind the item, that $400 is a lot of money. That is a car payment. That is, you know, for some people, that's a third of their rent or a third of their mortgage. 400 times 12 is 3,600. So imagine what that could do to your life, to your income. I mean, 3,600 for a lot of people is a pay raise every year. So you're denying yourself of this pay raise because you're listing on these platforms that take all this money from you. The other thing that I like to point out to people when I'm talking to them about listing on platforms and listing vintage in particular is that you are competing with fast fashion. You're really not quite reaching the target audience. So imagine that someone just, you know, pops in vintage jumpsuit or jumpsuit and they see this is a fast fashion or like a handmade jumpsuit for $51.77 on the left. On the right is a rare corduroy flare-leg jumpsuit. That is awesome for $225. But if that consumer is not knowledgeable about vintage, they're not going to really understand the value of the $225 when they're seeing a $51.77 jumpsuit next to it. It just changes the psychology of that customer. On the right is the same situation on Depop. So on Depop, these are some fast fashion jumpsuits that look like they're available, you know, multiples. Vintage is usually one of a kind. So again, this is going to distort the buyer's relationship with vintage and with, in particular, what you're offering next to fast fashion that is either available in multiples or is available at a lesser price, essentially. So long story short, guys, and this is how I started my social media career, is I launched a website called Sammy D Vintage, and I launched it so that I could sell on my own terms. I launched it because I thought, okay, I'm selling on these platforms, they're taking commission, this in-person stuff, like I can't do it consistently. It's eating up too much of my time, too much of my money. I'm super stressed. I'm going to start a website and I'm going to sell on the website. Kind of a romantic idea. I see a lot of people still do it today. A lot of people, they launch Shopify sites, they put all this money and time and attention, and then it's like crickets. And I don't mean to be a negative Nancy, but the reason that I'm sharing that it's so difficult to get customers to your website is because it is. You not only have to build the website and understand the technology, but you need to learn how to drive traffic to it. So you need to create either a social media following, or you need to create SEO behind some sort of content that you're posting on the site that brings the right customer. So what I ended up learning to do is creating content around vintage fashion, how to identify vintage tags, things like that. And I was selling from my website that way. But let me tell you how grueling that was and the time that I had to put into it. I do not recommend it for the average person with the average technology understanding and really like interest. So conclusion, guys, I found it wasn't any easier to sell online than it was to sell in person. Both had their pros, both had their cons, both took a lot of time, energy, and just blood, sweat, and tears. So this is Snoopy over here on the right, which I can't see on my screen. So I just moved my view of you guys, but I felt like this, like I felt like I was pulling out my hair. And I still loved vintage, right? I still loved like the act of sourcing, of thrifting it, of going to estate sales, of going to just like stores all around the country. I mean, how much fun is it to discover vintage and to get the Mecca and just to feel like I have all these treasures and I want to sell them. But how frustrating is it to not be able to sell them, right? I mean, it's so frustrating. And then all of a sudden you become a hoarder and you have all of this stuff in a room. If you're watching the live or the replay and that's you, that's totally okay. So back to my story, I was just over it and I needed a solution. So back to you guys, because this presentation is about you. That was my story. And that was my story a long time ago. It took me a long time to get to where I am today, but I'm so glad that I'm where I am today because I can teach you guys. I can teach you guys what I don't suggest you do. And I'm going to teach you guys how to not have that be your story. And maybe that's been your story because you thought to yourself, okay, I'm going to sell in person. Or you thought to yourself, I'm going to start a brick and mortar. Or you thought to yourself, I'm going to sell on Etsy. Most likely you can relate to some of those frustrations and maybe you're having some success, but you want to change your story. You want to change your story to be a profitable, successful vintage seller who has fun with what they do, not only sourcing, but selling. So I want your story to be that. That's why in tonight's presentation, I'm going to share with you the other way that I found to sell vintage clothing, to sell more vintage clothing, keyword more. This is the shortcut. This is the secret sauce. This is the solution to reaching your ideal customer base and selling consistently and without stress or ridiculous fees. Keyword fees. So guys, I want you guys to stay until the very end. If you are tuning in live, if you're watching the replay, I don't want you to miss out on something really special that I'm offering you. This is a vintage brands to look for sourcing guide. I put this together because I realized that some of you tuning in tonight might be new to vintage sourcing, to vintage shopping. And I wanted you to get a free guide. It's about 8 pages where you're going to get a list of just brand names to look for at the thrift store, at the vintage market, at the flea market, at that little store off the side of the road when you're just driving wherever you're driving, okay? This guide is going to help you identify vintage brands by tags, identify potential value, and just in general, learn more about vintage fashion history. And I've compiled this for you guys for free, but you have to stay until the end of this presentation to get the link to go and download the guide. So I'm just going to put that out there right now to encourage you to stay. All right, so what are we going to cover tonight? It's like 3 chapters that we're covering. Secret number 1, this is chapter number 1, the secret sauce to attracting consistent sales. So back to my story, I wasn't getting consistent sales at the flea market. It was just like, all right, let's cross my fingers and hope that people show up that like my stuff. I want you guys to learn how to get consistent sales. I don't want you to experience what I did. Secret number 2, how to go to the right party. Have you guys ever been to a party and you're kind of like, I don't know if this is the right party for me. I'm going to make the most of it. I've been there so many times because I actually really do enjoy parties. But long story short, you are wasting time, right? You're spending all this time at the wrong party as a seller. So we want you to learn where to go to the right party. So secret number 3, chapter number 3, be in the know and only buy the good stuff. Yes, I love shopping just as much as you. But one of the things about being a vintage seller is that we buy a lot of things that don't sell. And the reason is because we don't know our target audience. We don't know what the market wants. What I'm going to teach you guys tonight is how to know what the market wants and where to go to know what the market wants so that we know what to buy and we're not spending extra money at the thrift store than what we actually need to do. Just, I don't have this in my slides, but funny story. When I first started out as a vintage seller, I remember going to Salvation Army and spending $300. Who spends $300 at Salvation Army? This girl did. Okay, so secret number 1. Here is Jerry Maguire saying, show me the money. The secret sauce to attracting consistent sales. You guys want money. You need money. Yes, it's a passion. Yes, it's like I'm saving these pieces, I'm saving them from the landfills, but ultimately you guys need money as vintage sellers because that's the whole point of this business so that you can continue to do what you love and source. So you want to hear the cha-ching of a cash register, and this is like a metaphorical cash register from your phone each and every day. So what would it be like to turn on your phone, to turn on your iPhone, which my iPhone has Kiss My Vintage on the back. How cute is that? It's a new sticker of mine. How great would it be to turn on your phone or to just look at your phone and see that you've made a sale every day? I mean, I know I love it, and I want you guys to experience that for yourselves. How do you experience that for yourself? Something called social selling. Now, this is actually a phrase, maybe it's out there, maybe it's in the lexicon of business, but I've been using it to talk about how to sell through the power of social media. Social selling. So specifically digital social media. That social media can be TikTok, that social media can be Instagram, that social media can be Facebook, that social media can be WhatsApp. Whatever is a social media platform where you can connect with others and you can offer things for sale. That is social selling. So this is a very aggressive image, but I wanted to put it here because basically what social selling offers you is it offers you the chance to get in front of an audience who wants what you have. So this audience, metaphorically speaking, again, is fighting over your goods, which hardly happens in person. I'm sure it has at some point for all of us because we've just had some wicked awesome thing. But how cool would it be to see people online fighting over what you are offering? That is so cool. And it teaches you what more to buy. So I want you guys to imagine for a second social selling. Again, this can be on Instagram, this can be on Facebook, this can be on TikTok. We're going to talk more in a few minutes as to how to use these social media platforms to sell. But I want you guys to imagine that you're attracting your ideal customer. You're attracting the customer that wants what you have. Not only do they want your vintage, but you know that they are into 60s bright prints. So you're able to give them 60s bright prints and sell it to them because your ideal customer is there waiting for what you have to offer. I also want you guys to imagine getting higher prices for your garments because your customers are hungry for what you have. Through social selling, you get to learn the buying personalities and the style personalities of a group of people in a social environment that's online. So as you learn what they want, you can actually increase your prices on that platform because you know that this is something that the platform wants. You're not underselling yourself the same way you might be on Poshmark, on Etsy, at a flea market, or some other selling avenue. Also, imagine understanding the market, knowing what to source for them, and being able to communicate with them directly. So back to in-person selling, back to Etsy, back to Poshmark. You can kind of do some communication, but it's not as direct as it is on social media. Social media entered our world full force with Facebook around 2004. It has grown so much ever since. Now we are in direct communication with as many people as we want. And when we're in direct communication with a group full of buyers who want what we have, we can communicate with them directly and get the information we need to know what to sell to them. You can't do that on any other vintage selling platform. You can't do that on Poshmark. You can't do that on Etsy. You really can't do that at a flea market or an in-person event because these people come and go. Imagine the customers, I mean, just to, expand on that, they're telling you what they want you to source for them. So you're communicating with them and they're telling you what they want you to source. Again, direct communication with potential customers. Can't find that anywhere else. And because you have that direct communication, you're building personal relationships with the customers. And there's a phrase in marketing, it's called know, like, trust. So as your customers get to know, like, and trust you, they're going to come back and buy from you again and again and again. And the time cost and the time investment to acquire new customers is not there, because you're just able to sell to the same customers in that social space over and over and over again. Okay, we didn't touch on this yet, but a lot of the online resale platforms, they actually like put some pressure on you to pay to play. So Etsy does this. So Etsy, if they put your listing in Google search, they take like another 5% commission. It's something like that. eBay, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but they charge you like $3 to get like a highlighted header, or to get like a promoted post. So more and more these platforms, they need to make money too. So they're charging you to push your stuff to the front, because you think, okay, if I pay them $10 more, I'm going to sell this item. But I mean, that's a lot of pressure, and that's money lost from your sale. There's also the pressure of promoting your listings too. Poshmark is a great example. They want you to quote unquote share your closet. Honestly, who has time for that? I know I don't. And I think this might be our last slide of the imagination part of this presentation. But imagine the freedom of spending less time creating listings and lifestyle photos for these platforms. So again, Etsy, Poshmark, Depop, Mercari, you got to write all this stuff, take pretty photos, because people have to, be attracted to what you're posting, and they need all the information there, because there's less messaging functionality on these platforms. On Poshmark, you can't even message the seller. The buyer can only comment. And it's just weird. It's like a weird way to communicate. It creates a lot of friction. And you as a seller just feel all this pressure to make the most perfect listing so that someone feels confident to buy. So let's talk about how you guys can experience everything that I just made you imagine, which is everything from less pressure to pay to play, less pressure to promote your postings or your posts, your items for sale, less pressure to take beautiful photography and lifestyle photos and spend all this time. What you guys have to do to participate in social selling is find a social selling space you like. So we talked about, briefly TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. These are the three main places to find a social selling space you like. Really quickly on Instagram, there are a couple of platforms right now that are absolutely crushing it. So there's one that I follow. I'm blanking on the exact name, but it focuses on sportswear. So, like basically, streetwear, t-shirts, vintage 80s, vintage 90s. It's a little bit more of a male industry, but wow, they do these live sales, and these two guys, I don't know where they got the inventory. Of course, that's their own, process. They sold $22,000 of Kanye West vintage t-shirts in an hour and a half. So yeah, you can't tell me that social selling doesn't work, because again, on these social selling platforms, you're reaching a target audience. So these gentlemen that found, all of these Kanye West t-shirts, Kanye is very big in the news right now. They were able to find the right audience through social selling to sell those t-shirts too. It just blows my mind. There's so many Facebook pages, Facebook groups, Instagram pages, Instagram. I mean, I call them groups because they're more like community hubs. Some of them are influencers who are doing this. On TikTok, it's the same thing. You can go live on TikTok and you can participate in reaching a social media audience that you don't have to create, but they can become your target audience for the goods that you have. So you're going to enter this. So step 2 is you're going to enter this community of people, and you're going to figure out what they're looking for to buy by forming relationships and asking questions and seeing what sells from other sellers. Once you do that research, once you figure it out, you do have to do some research. You can go source, and you can quote unquote list quickly. So you can list items for sale on Facebook, or you can sell them live, or you can sell them live on Instagram, or sell them live on TikTok. You're going to connect with your customers, and you're going to sell quickly, because this is a huge, almost database of customers who are hungry for what you have, and they're in this social selling space because they want to be, not because they have to be. You're going to rinse and you're going to repeat. So again, social selling, it's not child's play. Back to that Kanye West metaphor. That is, I mean, that's very extreme, right? But here's another example, and this is my own personal story of how social selling can work so quickly once you're in the right space. So back in March, I went on a solo trip and I went to Palm Springs and I found this awesome 1960s coat. I listed it in a social selling space, and 9 minutes later, so 3:24, I listed it. 3:33, someone messaged me saying that they wanted to buy the coat. I actually think I did the math wrong and I haven't changed it. I think it's 8 minutes. Am I right? 6 plus 3? No, 9 minutes. 9 minutes. It was a 9-minute sale, guys. Where else can you do that? I have no idea. So what ended up happening is I had more money in my pocket than if I had listed this anywhere else. The coat cost me $60. I sold it for $189. I did offer shipping. So I ended up making $119 because with this customer, because I know, like, and trust them, they paid me with PayPal friends and family, which you can't do on any other platform. I could have listed this coat immediately upon buying it. I took my time. I had it for 10 days. Okay, yeah, time it took to sell 8 minutes or 9 minutes, but the time it took to list was 5. I took a photo of it in the thrift store. This is me in the thrift store wearing the item. No lifestyle photography, no fancy lighting, fancy models, all the things, just simple. A pure vintage resale win. I made $119 in 9 minutes with 5 minutes of work. So that is an example of how social selling can work for you, specifically in the women's vintage clothing and accessories genre, which is what I'm really here to talk to you guys about. But I wanted to give you a little bit more of an overview of what's available, because every genre of vintage, there is a social selling space for it. You just have to find the right party. So how to go to the right selling party, which I really love these heels. I'm in search of heels like this. Someone sell them to me. So a lot of us are familiar with vintage expos. So there's something called a current affair, something called Pickwick Vintage. There's something called Manhattan Vintage Show. There's a couple more that are a little bit more local. And these vintage expos have multiple vendors and people that either travel from out of town to set up, or they're somewhat local, but they still have to, set up, rent the space, take the time, the physical labor, sometimes hire someone to help them, talk to people, have the energy, have the stamina. It is exhausting. So what the right party is with social selling is basically a vintage expo from the comfort of your own home. And it's the right party, as I'm about to explain to you, because you don't have to set up somewhere else. You don't have to have stamina for 12 hours a day. You don't have to have a friendly face and talk to people just to keep them in your booth. You can do it all through the power of hosting a live sale. So I briefly brought this up to you guys when I was talking about the social selling platforms. Live sales have become the way to sell vintage clothing. I really don't think that there's going to be any other way in the future except for maybe the metaverse and being able to virtual reality ourselves into a store. Hosting a live sale allows you to basically go live from whatever social selling platform you're on. Here's some screenshots showing Facebook. Share your pieces with your audience, and your audience can see them in a 3-dimensional way. You talk about them. You're not taking photos. You're not writing out perfect descriptions. You're getting through maybe 50 to 100 items in 60 minutes to 2 hours. You're making sales. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Maybe you're, putting your clothing to the side to set up a little corner. Maybe it's a designated resale room. Maybe it's your bedroom, but you're not really leaving home, right? You're still in the comfort of your own home. So it does not take hours and hours and hours to make money. I have seen live sellers in social spaces make more money in 1 hour than they would in 1 day at a vintage expo. And these are facts, guys. So I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to gloss over this too much. We are going to cover this a little bit more later in the presentation. But before I move on to secret number 3, there are a variety of social media groups, pages, influencers who are hosting live sales for you, the vintage seller or the reseller, even if you're just general clothing. And I encourage all of you to go find those social selling spaces so you can stop being frustrated and you can start having more fun selling more vintage clothing. Oops, I went back. Okay. So finally, guys, secret number 3, source only the good stuff. Have a smiley face with hard eyes. So when I first started out as a reseller, I didn't really I just bought what I liked, which there is something to say about that because what you like can end up being your brand. But a smart business person learns where they're selling, who they're selling to, who's coming into their quote unquote store or virtual space, and sourcing the things over and over and over again that are going to sell quickly and at a high profit margin. You don't want to acquire what is called inventory debt. Inventory debt is when you are just holding on to stuff because it's not selling. It's taking up space in your home, which is basically taking up rent. It's taking up mental space in your house. It's kind of discouraging you because you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't sold this stuff. It's kind of ironic, right? But when you have less inventory, you just do better because less is more. You know what to buy and you're selling it quickly versus you're acquiring all of this stuff and you're not selling it quickly. So this is a quick example in a I almost gave the social selling space away. In a social selling space on Facebook where I posted a photo of myself wearing this awesome jumpsuit. Now I had no idea it was going to get the reaction that it did. There were people, as you can see with these lines, just saying, I asked first to buy it. No, sell it to me. I had no idea. And because I was getting this feedback, I now know to go look for this jumpsuit again, which it is a label. So I can source it online. I can type that label in to look for this style, to look for this cut, and to basically market to an audience the things that they want as I've learned that they want. It also helps me to know how to price it because when I see that there's a high demand, the supply and demand philosophy comes into play. And I might have sold this for a lot less elsewhere, but I know that I can get more for it in this social selling space. So here's some examples of, items that have sold in a social selling space that I'm about to tell you guys more about. Seeing the word sold has to be it's just the most fun part of selling, right? It's like, I sold it. I sold it. I'm sending this, I'm blessing someone with this item. It's getting a new happy home. And what would it be like for you guys to basically say, I sold it, I sold it, I sold it. That's what I want you guys to imagine for yourselves tonight. And the more that you see what sells to a group of people that are always present in a social selling space, the more that you source those type of items, the more success you're going to have. So just to back up to Etsy, Etsy, it's a search engine optimized platform, but the same people aren't coming back to your shop. People kind of think that they do, but who really bookmarks a Etsy shop unless you personally get to know the seller? So these people they're like fly by night customers. They buy one thing from you, you never see them again. But in the social selling space, they come back and come back and come back. So again, as you learn what people want, you can keep buying things that they like and selling it to them because these customers are there in the social selling space, coming back to your quote unquote shop versus disappearing forever. I love this image because it's some European castle or duke's home or something. a lot of people come to me, I'm a reseller, and they're like, I want to start selling vintage, but I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start. And I tell them about social selling because you don't need to be this super duper professional to make a couple hundred extra dollars a month. People complicate it when it's on Etsy, when it's at a flea market, when it's at some in-person venue, because they feel like, oh, I need to build a brand, and oh, I need to get business cards, and oh, I need to get, all this fancy stuff, right? Versus a social selling space, it's like, I'm going to show up and, I don't have to be perfect. There's no frills. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to hold my items up. I'm going to sell them. I'm going to list them very quickly because my listing doesn't have to be perfect. So I want to share a really quick success story with you. Sorry, I'm going to go back. So when people come to me about, selling vintage clothing, I like to tell them also about the story of a woman. She started in my social selling space that I'm going to share with you guys. She started in 2019, and she started because she had just been going to estate sales. She loved vintage, and she was a hoarder, not hoarder, but it felt like that because she just had so much stuff, and she was so nervous. She was so nervous to start. Well, now most of her sales come from a social selling space. She has shared with me that she's been able to buy her daughter a wedding dress. She was able to fix her front porch. She was able to get, I forget what it's called, when you have like inside AC, not a air unit, but you actually have proper air conditioning. She was able to not work so much at her after school job because she's a teacher's aide and she sometimes worked after school. Resale changed her life. It changed her life. And she just had to start with social selling. And that's what I want for you guys. So here's the thing. This presentation could quite honestly be 3 hours. I could show you all the nuances of social selling. I could show you, how to, upsell a customer that you meet, how to have a great live sale, how to price, how to know how to price. I mean, there's so many things. But the truth is, I wanted to give you guys an introduction. So can I really quickly ask you guys a question? All right. Can I show you just really quickly how to get started with social selling today? Now, I've asked this question in the last 2 webinars, and every single time people have said, okay. So I'm hoping that you are excited to learn how to get started with social selling, whether you're watching the live or you're checking out the replay, because back to that brief story I shared with you, you can get started with social selling literally today. Literally, you can be making money tomorrow. It's May 31st. Let's have you make some money tomorrow, June 1st, 2022. So I'm going to assume that you guys are okay with me sharing my social selling platform with you, because I really, really, really want to share it with you guys. And what's exciting is actually it's up to 4,000 members now. This is an old screenshot because we continue to grow. So 12 years ago, my goodness, it's been 14 years. I can't even do my math right. 14 years ago, when I first started as a reseller, I didn't know what social selling was. Today, I know what it is. And that's why I started this community for all of you who want to be a vintage seller, who want to create something out of nothing without the pressure, without the fees, having fun and selling more vintage. And that is Vintage Boss Babes. This is a community on Facebook where we sell daily in a Facebook group. You can sell as much as you want. And I'm going to talk to you guys more about that briefly. And we also host live sales. Here is a sampling of my Vintage Boss Babes. We have so many more who are registered sellers, but you too can be one of these spaces, either with my community or another community of your choice that is a social selling space. So what I want to offer you guys is the chance to join Vintage Boss Babes. And I want to offer you guys a lot of things when you join Vintage Boss Babes. If you join Vintage Boss Babes by going to joinvintagebosbabes.com, you're going to get something called a Vintage Seller Starter Pack. And I'm going to walk you guys through it momentarily. This Vintage Seller Starter Pack is basically the answer to any question that you might have if you are new to social selling, if you are new to live selling, and if you're new to vintage selling in general. So hold on, guys. When you join Vintage Boss Babes, you're going to get in front of 4,000 people daily. So I just shared that screenshot with you. We have over 4,000 people in the group. We had 100 people request to join this past weekend alone. You're going to be able to host a live sale, just like those screenshots I showed. And you're going to be able to reach people like you're at a virtual convention. You're not going to have to set up. You're not going to have to break down. You're not going to have to drive anywhere. You can do it all through the power of the internet, a Wi-Fi signal, and your home. And you can post as many items for sale in the group as you want. So not only does Vintage Boss Babes allow you to host live sales, which I'll talk to you more about the offerings, but you can post items for sale, and you can post 100 times a day if you want. I have seen so many people make a couple hundred extra dollars per month just by posting 10 items in the group every month. And I say quote unquote no space issues here because, again, when you compare a social selling space to, say, a brick and mortar store or an Etsy shop where they charge you every month to just have stuff up, you're not being charged every month to just list. You're not being charged per listing, and there's no space issues. Like, you can list as much as you want. So I hope that makes sense. So when you join Vintage Boss Babes, and as you get to know this social selling space, and that's why I'm suggesting that you guys join tonight, you're going to learn you're going to experience regular sales because you're going to learn from customers who know and love you. And I love these screenshots because they're so friendly. Next in line, sold, heart, heart, heart. It's so cute. You will love. Thank you. It's just such a friendly, loving atmosphere of women's vintage clothing and accessories lovers. And you can be a part of it. So basically, as soon as you guys sign up, and I'm going to tell you more about the Vintage Seller Starter Kit that you get, but as soon as you sign up, you can begin posting vintage items for sale in this community as much as you want. You can not only post items for sale as singular items, but you can post multiple items for sale. You can post up to 5 items in one post. So say you have 5 hats for sale. You can post 5 hats for sale. Say you have 5 dresses, you can post 5 dresses for sale. Say you want to post a photo of your outfit. The shoes are this, the skirt is this, the top is this. This is brand new to Vintage Boss Babes because we are always growing and evolving, and it starts tomorrow. So the fact that you guys are on tonight's webinar, this is the only time I'm going to share this on a webinar that is brand new because it starts tomorrow. You're going to be able to post multiple items in one post and sell those items from the post. If you do this daily, you're going to learn from the activity and the connections that you make. You're going to learn what to source, how to price, everything that you need to know about being a vintage reseller, you're going to get from the experience of posting so much more. You're going to learn so much more than if you're just listing on Etsy or Poshmark or trying to sell in person. You're also, because you'll be a new seller if you join Vintage Boss Babes tonight. So join vintagebossbabes.com. You're also going to have exclusive access to hosting a live 30-minute vintage clothing and accessories sale. So each and every night in Vintage Boss Babes, we have a live sale. It's from 9 p.m. to 10:15. But as a new seller, it can be a little competitive to get one of those 9 p.m. slots. That's why, as a new seller, you guys get exclusive access to hosting a 30-minute sale at a reduced cost that you can book up to 2 months in advance. So if you guys join tonight, you can book one of these 30-minute sales in June or in July. You're going to get the link to book right away. It is an additional fee, but it's very, very low cost. You'll make your money back and a lot more. So speaking of money, haven't even talked about the money part yet. I'm just so excited about selling vintage clothing through social selling that I actually forget to talk to you guys about. Here's all the money that you can make. Let me take a sip of my water. Hold on. I was feeling kind of tired tonight, so I'm excited that I have energy. So long story short, you can make money. You can make serious money. Just as a quick example, and guys, these results are not guaranteed. I do have to give this disclosure, but these are some of the numbers that you can, kind of aim for, right? Like this is a no stealing opportunity. So here's one seller. She made $1,500 in 75 minutes, $750, over $800, $1,150. This weekend, we did a very special live sales series in Vintage Boss Babes. 2 sellers made over $2,500 in 90 minutes. Here's some examples of customers posting customer appreciation posts, which I absolutely love, because this shows that these are customers who know, like, and trust you, and they want to keep buying from you because they know your quality, they know your customer service, and they're able to connect with you in a social space. So they're not going to lose touch with you, and you're not going to lose touch with them. So are you guys ready? Like, again, like, let's put ourselves in the shoes of being the social seller. Are you ready to make hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars in a live sale? Like, oh, so sorry. I went backwards. But let's I still need to ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to make that money? So are you ready to save time and make top dollar on your vintage items? Again, like, when you guys set up at an in-person event or a market, I don't know where you live, but some areas of the country, people just don't appreciate it. They just don't, like, okay. They kind of look at it and they're like, oh, that old stuff. Now, I will say that vintage, it has increased in popularity, thank goodness. But still, you don't want to waste your time setting up or trying to sell to an audience that doesn't appreciate it. And then you're not going to get top dollar, because if they do want it, they're going to want to spend like $20 on your items. So $60 sold, $50 sold. I don't have the price on this one, but I believe it was like 75 or 80. These are great prices for pieces of vintage that you don't pay commission on. You're not paying anyone commission. And again, you can do friends and family with PayPal, with Venmo, with whatever, because like, and trust your customers, and they know, like, and trust you. So let's recap what happens if you join VintageBossBabes.com. All right. If you join, you're going to be able to list as many items as you want in the community. So every single day, you can list 10 items, you can list 15, you can list 30, you can list 20. There's no limit. You don't have to pay a single commission fee. You only pay the monthly registered seller fee, which is so low. I'm going to tell you guys what it is in a second, and you're going to get a special offer just for you guys tonight. But basically what this means is that all the money goes back into your pocket. So again, you list on Etsy, you lose that 6.5% plus the 25 cents plus another 3.5% plus the shipping. Like, you just lose money. But here in Vintage Boss Babes, you just pay a monthly fee and then you make money. You pay a little bit, but then you make a lot. You're not losing more money as you go. It's pretty incredible, guys. You're going to understand what the market wants to buy, because you're going to, as you spend time in this social selling space that is Vintage Boss Babes, and you could do this in other social selling spaces, you're going to learn what to, source and what to list, and more quickly make a sale. You're going to connect with hungry, vintage loving customers and maintain contact with these customers for future sales. I always like to remind people that, again, when you're selling on other platforms, when you're selling in person, you don't really keep the customer. You can make a newsletter, and that helps. If they end up following you on social media, which is really hard, it's actually really hard to move people from an off social media platform to follow you on social media. You can kind of keep in touch with them there, but you want to have a space where these customers, that they'll always be able to find you and you're always able to find them. And that's what Vintage Boss Babes offers you guys. So again, you're going to be able to stop having pressure to take pretty photos, having pressure to write perfect descriptions, having pressure to set up at in-person events, feeling pressure to go buy everything under the sun, feeling pressure to pay to play by paying eBay, Etsy, whatever, extra money to promote your items. You're not going to have to pay commission. I think there's a lot of other things. You're going to stop wasting time. The most important thing for me, my favorite phrase is, I ain't got time for that. It has helped me in the last few years of my life. So you ain't got time for that, guys. What you have time for is more money back in your pocket, connecting with customers who know, like, and trust you, connecting with customers who want what you have, being in an environment where you can learn what the market wants, go source it and sell it to them, and being able to make hundreds to thousands of dollars in a limited amount of time, the same amount of money that you might potentially make across a 15-hour day setting up at an in-person vintage expo. So we want you guys to be on the rocket ship, okay? So before I proceed and explain to you a little bit more about what you're going to get from joining Vintage Boss Babes, wouldn't it be worth it if you just made a couple $100 extra? And I like this this screenshot because, you know, $750 for one live sale is an incredible amount. $750 is like some people's paycheck for a week. I mean, let's be real. So wouldn't it be worth it if that's all you made by joining? So the fun doesn't stop there, guys. And the fun doesn't stop there because not only do I want you to join Vintage Boss Babes and become a seller, but I want you to join Vintage Boss Babes so you can also get these free bonuses that I'm offering you guys to help you succeed as a vintage seller in any social space. I mean, quite honestly, in any social space. Like, this information you can apply anywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere. So here's what you're gonna get if you join Vintage Boss Babes tonight. You're gonna get something called shipping for resellers. In this presentation, it's a 60-minute video with slides. You're gonna learn how to get the cheapest costs for domestic and international shipping so that you can officially launch an international vintage resale business if you so choose. You're going to learn what type of packaging you need. You're going to learn how to set up appointments for people from the post office to pick up your packages. You're going to learn all of the nuances, the things that you didn't know that you didn't know. So that's the first thing that you'll get. The second thing that you'll get is a checklist that's going to describe how to promote your live sale. So as soon as you join Vintage Boss Babes, you can sign up for a live sale. You can sign up for a 30-minute flash sale at a reduced price. You can also sign up for any of the other live sale offerings that we have in our community really quickly. Typically have a 9 p.m. live sale every night, but you might not know how to market, right? This might all be new to you. You're going to get a checklist that's going to share with you how to become a quality marketer of your live sale so that more people show up and more people buy from you. So the Vintage Boss Babes 1-month seller membership is normally $25. So I'm just going to put that out there. It's not going to be $25 for you guys tonight. The shipping for resellers is normally $47, and the promoting your live sale checklist is a $27 value. What you're also going to get is how to succeed as a live seller in Vintage Boss Babes video training. So this is a video training hosted by me. I believe it's 36 minutes last time I checked. If you listen to this, you're going to get the best overview to hosting your live sale. A lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to host a live sale. I'm like, watch this video. You'll be good to go. So again, Vintage Boss Babe 1-month membership, $25, shipping for resellers, $47, promoting your live sale checklist, $27, how to succeed as a live seller of Vintage Boss Babes, $47. You're going to get all of that tonight, plus the dating vintage clothing guide. So in this training, you're going to learn how to date vintage clothing by era. You're going to learn how to date vintage clothing by tag. You're going to learn how to date vintage clothing by style. This is an amazing presentation. So let's just back it up one more time because you're going to get all of this for an incredible value. It's coming up momentarily. You're going to get that Vintage Boss Babe 1-month seller membership so you can start selling instantly in the community. You can purchase your discounted live sale spot, host a live sale almost immediately. So that's a $25 value. Shipping for resellers is a $47 value. Promoting your live sale checklist is a $27 value. How to succeed as a live seller in Vintage Boss Babes. That's a video training led by me. That's $47. Dating vintage clothing, $47. And a few of these trainings, guys, I have sold at these prices. Like, I'm not just throwing numbers out here. I have sold these in the past. So you get them tonight for almost nothing. The last thing you're going to get is how to market your vintage clothing in Facebook groups. So on Facebook, there's other social selling spaces. Vintage Boss Babes is one of many, which is so exciting because that means that you can cross promote and you can source different things for different Facebook groups. So you're going to get a training teaching you how to do that. And that's called Marketing Your Vintage Clothing, the Facebook groups. All right. So what's in the Vintage Seller Starter Kit? I always get my fast talking Yankee voice on, guys, because I'm originally from the Northeast. So you're going to get a 1-month seller membership to Vintage Boss Babes. You can list items for sale instantly in the group, make money instantly in the group, and purchase a live sales spot instantly in the group. Then you're going to get the shipping for resellers training. You're going to get a checklist on how to promote your live sale. You're going to get a video training on how to succeed as a live seller. You're going to get a training on dating vintage clothing, and you're going to get a training on marketing your vintage clothing in the Facebook groups. This is all in the Vintage Seller Starter Kit that if you join Vintage Boss Babes, so go to joinvintagebossbabes.com, you're going to get that on the back end of your registration. So everything's going to be available for you on a website that you can log into, and you can access all of that immediately. So I'm going to tell you guys the price in a second. I always build suspense. It's so fun for me. But just imagine after hearing the price, what if all you did was invest tonight, join vintagebossbabes.com, and you get 100 times your money back in 30 days. So what's the cost? You're probably asking. I'm not going to tell you quite yet. I forgot I have all these slides. Just to remind you guys, once if you sign up in the next 72 hours tonight until 3 days from now, you can register for a lunchtime 30-minute flash sale live and start making money almost immediately. So these are the flash sales I was talking about. You can sign up for one of these exclusive flash sales that are just for new sellers. All right. And then tomorrow, I am hosting. So this is brand new to Vintage Boss Babes. Tomorrow is June 1st, 2022. If you purchase or if you join Vintage Boss Babes after tomorrow, you'll still be able to catch the replay. I'm going to be doing a live training on how to succeed as a seller in the community. So remember earlier in this presentation, I said there's so much more for me to cover. I can't cover it all. I'm going to cover it in that training. So each and every month there will be an overview live in the group that you guys can tune into live or catch the replay, showing you, talking to you, walking you through how to succeed as a seller in the community. Okay, here we go. Most likely you guys already went to joinvintagebossbabes.com, but if you haven't, all of this, everything on that Vintage Seller Starter Kit, all of those trainings, the 1-month seller registration, the access to purchasing the live sale, tomorrow's training that you can catch live, or the replay as to how to succeed as a live seller, it's $1. It's just $1. So you guys, for the next 72 hours, joinvintagebossbabes.com is going to be live. And instead of spending $239, which is what all of that value adds up to be in the Vintage Seller Starter Pack, all you have to do is invest $1 today. That $1 gives you 30 days of selling in the community. And what if you make 100 times that $1? You've made $100 on a $1 investment. That is the best stock investment I've ever heard of, to make 100,000% on your investment. So again, it's only open for the next 72 hours. If you guys go to the website right now and you scroll down, this is where you fill in your first name, your last name, your email address. You can pay by credit card, you can pay with PayPal, or you can pay with Google Pay. Once you press confirm, it's going to give you an email confirmation so that you know that you're in. I will be in touch with you so that I can personally welcome you to Vintage Boss Babes and onboard you into the community. But if you're watching this past the 72-hour mark, the page will be closed. There is a ticker on the page so that you know when the page is going to close. The reason I do this is because I welcome you guys to the community together. And I want to have that time and attention for you to make sure that you're set up to win by joining Vintage Boss Babes. So a few things that might be going through your mind right now. If you have these oppositions, I first want to say, I get it. if you have these hesitations rather. I totally get it. This is probably completely brand new to some of you. So first and foremost, you might be afraid of public speaking and you're like, I just don't know if I can handle a live vintage clothing sale. I never know what to say and I trip on my words. Okay, so I totally get that. Here's the thing about live selling. You're basically talking about clothing and you're describing it and you're saying the price. You don't have to say much more. You really don't. You're talking about clothing. I think most of us talk about clothing every single day because we're women, or we're just people that like clothing. We're just people in general, don't have to be women. So you're not giving this like presentation that has to be perfect and poised and like the State of the Union. So I want to be real with you guys about that. Also, people are nervous. I get it. So here's Nicole's story. She says, I know I get nervous, Tammy, blah, blah, blah. But she hosted a live sale, guys. She posted a sneak peek and she had people DMing her to basically buy her dresses, to buy the items she was selling before she went live. So I think that Nicole, even though she was nervous, she was grateful that she was hosting the live sale because she saw the results. So sometimes conquering those first time nerves is worth it. Actually, I would say always conquering those first time nerves is worth it. I used to be nervous hosting this webinar and now I'm just like, okay, this is cool. I'm sharing my story and I'm sharing something I believe in with you guys. So I got over my first time nerves and now it's a lot easier. So here's the thing. Also, people say, I just don't like social media. The idea of using Facebook, it overwhelms me. I hate Facebook. I get it. Facebook can be like very political. It can be just like full of noise. But you know what? When you're using Facebook for something that gives you joy, that creates passion in your life, that makes you money, all of a sudden the experience of using Facebook changes. Your feed changes, your direct messages change, your whole relationship with Facebook changes. I always like to like joke with people that I never see babies. I never see anything political. I just see people's outfits on my Facebook feed because I use it for my business. So the thing also about Facebook is that you're talking to people, but you're not talking to people the way that you would running a store or having a booth at a market or doing an in-person event. You know, when we set up for these events, if we don't talk to people, they don't buy from us. Like you have to be a chatty Cathy. Like you have to put yourself out there to keep people in the store, in the booth to buy from you. And that takes a lot of time and energy. So I would much rather be typing on Facebook than actually using my voice all day long to sell vintage clothing. Okay, so the other question that people have for me is like, how do I know what to source and how do I know what to price? Or how do I know to price it? So, you know, essentially, as you use the community, you learn. You're going to become a much faster professional at vintage resale by using a social selling platform like Vintage Boss Babes, because by posting and by seeing what other people are posting and by seeing what other people are selling, not only in the group, but on the lives and for how much, you're going to learn how to price. You're going to learn how to price from witnessing what other sellers are doing, which is very difficult to do on eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, Mercari, and at in-person events. And you're also, you're going to have immediate feedback from your customers. So, you know, I have posted things in Vintage Boss Babes that have sold in seconds. And I'm like, probably didn't price that. I know. And then some things people like, they commented, they really liked, didn't buy, but I lowered it, you know, 20, 30, 40 bucks. It flew because I had instant feedback. So I want you guys just to know that this is an educational place for you as well. So actually I already went over this tip about selling something super fast. You can also just ask people what they're looking for. So again, unlike any other platform, you can post a comment, make a post in Vintage Boss Babes and be like, hey guys, so I'm sourcing for summer 2022. What are you looking for? And oh my gosh, I've just seen such great conversation when our sellers do that. And again, you can check out what other sellers are doing. So you can kind of be, you know, a little sly. It's not even sly. I mean, it's public information. That's the thing. It's transparent. Social selling is very transparent. And that's the other reason that I love it, because I think it creates a platform of equality amongst resellers. Okay, so Some people come to me and say, but my partner, family, friends will criticize me if I start yet another part-time thing. Been there, done that. Here's the thing. A lot of us, perhaps over the last decade, we've been introduced to like a direct sales company, a network marketing company, buying into a franchise, doing day trading, doing crypto. Like there's just so many ways to make a buck these days. But the thing about being a reseller, especially with a brand like Vintage Boss Babes, is that it's still your brand. You're not buying into the Vintage Boss Babe brand. You're investing in your own brand. You're investing in your own time freedom. So you can be as active as you want. You can represent your brand on your own terms and succeed on your own terms versus say, one of these companies where you're like selling essential oils or like healthcare products, whatever, like you really are representing that brand. And all of the profit margins are as determined by that brand. The type of product is determined by that brand. As a reseller, like it's you, baby. So I like to remind people of that. Okay. So has your thrift store become too expensive? Maybe so. Maybe in your neck of the woods, it's just like, oh my gosh, Salvation Army, why are you charging $20 for this item? I really feel you. Like I totally feel you on this. What I want to point out is that as resale grows and as these thrift stores, perhaps become more expensive, I still think that there's so many relatively affordable, reasonable avenues to source vintage clothing, which I'll talk to you guys more about tomorrow during my How to Succeed as a Live Seller, How to Succeed as a Seller in Vintage Boss Babes training, if you join Vintage Boss Babes. But long story short, one of my favorite phrases is that it's just more important to know what people want. So 12 years ago, 14 years ago, when I was starting out as a reseller, I could go to Salvation Army and spend $300 and just buy a bunch of stuff. That $300 today might be $900 because of how Salvation Army has increased their prices. So today it's even more important to know what to buy and to know who you're selling to. It's more important to be in a social selling space than ever before. You can't take chances the way that you used to because a $3 item at Salvation Army is now $9.99. So it's 3 times what it used to be. So I want you guys to put more money back in your pocket by investing in the right selling space that's going to give you the information you need to be a better vintage seller. So we're almost done with the presentation, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. What else do you need? I don't think you need anything. I'm just going to remind you, the next 3 days, aka 72 hours, joinvintagebossbabes.com will be open for you to register as a seller and to get all of these bonuses. That is a $239 value for $1. Shipping for resellers, promoting your live sales checklist, how to succeed as a live seller, dating vintage clothing, marketing your vintage clothing to Facebook groups. $239 for $1, plus that 1 month free membership. We can't forget about that. And that's how you're going to make your money back right away. So if anyone here tonight, tuning into the live, thank you for all of you who've tuned into tonight's live. Thank you to everyone who's tuning into the replay. We had over 50 people sign up for this webinar, so I know a ton of you are tuning into the replay. If any of you have a hesitation, I just want to ask you, what if? Like, what if you succeed? What if you join and all of a sudden you host a live sale in June, you make $300, you have 10 to 15 new customers, and then you post a bunch of items for sale in Vintage Boss Babes, you make another couple hundred, and there you have it. Results are not guaranteed, but my goodness, have I seen that happen? I have seen that happen. I don't know what you have to bring to the table, but if you believe in yourself and you believe that this can be something for you, I want you to trust that. So what if? All right, last but not least, if anything, I want you guys to get this free guide, if anything. So I'm going to keep this up on the screen for about a minute. Go to tinyurl.com/vintage-labels-sourcing-guide. You're going to put your email. I think it's like first name, last name, email. And within about 10, 15 minutes, my email server does take a minute. you're going to get an email. Check your social. If you have Gmail, check your spam if you don't get it. And you're going to get my vintage labels I look for when sourcing guide. And this is something that is invaluable information that's going to help you to be able to spy with your tiny eye vintage labels to look for, as well as some modern designer ones that you can find vintage. All right. Last but not least, as well, if you guys have questions, which my last 2 webinars, I did get a lot of emails. So I'm going to keep this up for about another minute before I stop sharing the screen. Please just email me, vintagebossbabes.com. I'm so sorry, vintagebossbabes@gmail.com. I will get back to you. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me under Sammy Davis. And I absolutely love what I do, guys. I will share, just to end this presentation, there was a time in my life, you know, I thought I was supposed to go into real estate. I started to explore my real estate license. A few life things happened and I was like, you know what? No, because life is so short and I want to do what I love. I want to be happy. I want to wake up every day motivated, on fire, and with love in my heart. And I really believe that resale and vintage resale in particular can offer that to you if that's what your spirit is telling you to do. So I hope that you can trust your intuition. And if you do have some more questions because you're just not sure, email me. Happy to chat with you. All right, guys, that is the end of our presentation. How did I do on time? It's 8:21. I did pretty well. Awesome. I'm seeing some of your messages. Thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh, I did pretty well. I think my last presentation was a little bit longer than that. But I'm so glad that those of you who tuned in live could tune in live tonight, could see me with my fun hat, my fun vintage hat. I welcome you to email me. I welcome you to check out Vintage Boss Babes, and just know that join vintagebossbabes.com. It closes in 3 days. And tomorrow is an amazing free training that I'm offering to all of our sellers on how to succeed as a seller in Vintage Boss Babes. And I'm going to dive into the nuances that I didn't get a chance to share with you guys tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to say goodnight because it's 8:20. Now it's 8:22. Thank you guys again for attending, and I hope to see you in Vintage Boss Babes. Email me with questions and let's sell more vintage, guys. All right. Bye.